can be wrong. My only song in my song. The thing in there makes no difference when back on. Everyday people. See, he's dropping the volume too low. He's dropping the volume too low. Now he's just having fun with it. Hi, this is Mark Hopkins, and I'm back with another episode of Unsung. You can get us on Facebook. Look it up. You know how it works. On Twitter, same thing. www.unsung.us. Shining a spotlight on everyday people. We're back for part 2 with very public everyday person that we just didn't have enough time last time. I got to going down memory lane for myself and some former schoolmates from decades ago that I know will listen to this, and hopefully it'll be good memories for them. Trying to get a lifelong educator, Mr. James Villereal, to talk a little about himself and what he's done. He's always helping other people. Things that he's involved in and passionate with. The list is enormous. I've learned more about him now, but he's worked with the Sixers. He's working on a book that's due to be published very shortly. He's done lots of court work. He just came today from visiting former students. He's always helping students out. Had a TV show on cable for 640 episodes, was it?
640 original shows.
Yeah, and that's unheard of now. That's like 50 years if you go by cable seasons, or if you go by episodes of Sherlock, that's 8,012 years if you do BBC episode math. But Mr. Villereal, thank you very much for doing part 2.
Glad to be here. Very glad to be here.
I don't even want to maintain the normal quote structure. If I actually do attempt to have a structure here, I know it doesn't come across that way sometimes, but I don't even want to attempt to do that. I just want to talk to you about, you know, the things that are important to you that you don't get to say normally. And you know, you talked about the being a drill sergeant. I can't get that out of my head. I've repeated that several times. I think that's something that many people might not know. The basketball. I know you played basketball. I didn't know you did stuff with the Sixers, and I didn't know that you had coached and everything. And just as a testament to your optimism, Mr. Villereal's only 5'6". So
yes, at my high school days, captain of the high school team, high scorer, I entered the seminary where I learned for 9 years how to be a priest. I studied that. It was a 15-year course to finish. But of course, a Southwest Philly kid with no gymnasiums anywhere, all of a sudden, I end up with a beautiful basketball court, and I learned to do fall-away jump shots. I literally could jump up and hit the rim with, as small as I am, hit the rim with 2 fingers. And I still, at 73, still play full court at a high level at the Roxborough Y. But in college, I was a point guard, and we won a state championship there. But my interest in basketball always continued. I coached for many years in the neighborhood. Then I coached at the Henry School. And though I taught at Henry and Houston, the arch rival,
right.
Kids would, oh, Mr. V, how could you coach the other school? You're a traitor.
Yeah, great school rivals. It's amazing to me that you took the seminary and the military and combined it, and that route led you to the Philadelphia public school system, which is probably the perfect mix.
Yes.
You know,
you could take. I did years and years of summer camp counseling. Besides being I was years and years helping to run summer camps. So that did inform a lot of my playfulness and creativity, and which was kind of natural for me anyway. I am quite a mischievous person. As a matter of fact, this very excellent PhD technician we have here, Russell, he's sometimes known as Russell PhD, but we're not sure what it's in, PhD in something.
It's good to have somebody else messing with Russell. It takes the load off of me. Tell us about some of your dealings with some of your former students that stand out in your mind. Some good.
Well, here's a really beautiful one. There's a certain young man who, when he came in my room, in a room full of mischiefs over at Henry School. Just happened to be that room was the most difficult class in the school. And I would go to this young man's house. I was not a teacher who just took care of school. I went to people's homes in the evenings a lot. And I would be at his house 3 nights a week with a pink slip. He started a fight. He flipped a desk. He threw a book across the room and hit the principal in the chest. Oh, my God. And the name of the young man whose mother finally said to me, Mr. V, when you come to our house on Sharpnack, please don't knock. Just walk in and say, it's me again. And the name of that young man was Bernard Hopkins, one of the greatest boxers in the history of the world. Undefeated middleweight champion for 11 years, light heavyweight champion for years, and still today at 51, still boxing and still a champion.
The second toughest Hopkins from Mount Airy.
Yes, the second toughest, and amazing in his family. His sister, Bernadette, was the toughest person in the school, could beat up Bernard and anybody else who messed with her. So he came from a legacy, and to this day, Bernard considers me like a stand-in dad since he's a little boy. And where I just was today, a few hours ago at Graterford Prison, seeing another one of my students to help him, and actually going to help him get out, I hope. There is a 3-story mural of Bernard Hopkins in the cafeteria there, because he spent part of his 5 years there when he was having his roughest times, but he became a great model for non-recidivism, a man who made it tremendously, not just because of the sport, but he is an excellent human being and a philanthropist, and there's great pride and a model for many other prisoners. He's an icon in Philadelphia for sure.
That's a great story, and there's so any other famous people come out of the schools?
Oh my goodness, Henry School, Houston School, a classmate of the gentleman I was just with today is David Cohen, one of the heads of Comcast in Philadelphia, one of the kingmakers of politicians. At Henry School, there are 4 Nobel Prize winners from one elementary school. 4. If you Google Henry School and Nobel Prize winners, you will be astounded to see research in science, research in cancer cures from neighborhood elementary schools. The Sister Sledge, everybody knows that singing group. They went through Emlyn School. One of their sisters ended up being a teacher, the non-singing sister, a teacher at the school.
Houston got any Nobel Peace Prize winners?
Well, interesting that Houston School has actors, singers, producers, a great amount of talent from Mount Airy schools, pro basketball players all over the place, kids who played major college basketball. Sean Singletary, drafted by the Phoenix Suns, now running programs to mentor young kids in the Mount Airy area. A tremendous amount of give back from students in our community.
Well, to all my fellow Houston alumni out there, we've got to rally and get 5 Nobel Peace Prizes to keep the rivalry alive.
Yes,
and
yes.
Just take as much time as you need, take a couple years, whatever. We just need 5. They can be in anything, right?
Yes, and Facebook has a great Houston page. It's called, if you go on Facebook, it's called You Know You Went to Houston Elementary If. And right after you put the if, you see pages and pages of your classmates, your teachers, the history of the school, photographs of your classmates when you were young kids. It is a tremendous thing. And the teachers from Houston, a huge amount, 35 of us, retired teachers in very good health and still handsome and lovely. They get together 3-4 times a year at Andy's Diner near Chemical Road and Ridge, right in the area.
Who are some of the people that still go to that?
Oh, my goodness gracious. Mr. Raitano, Mr. Kligger goes there. Miss Schwartz is the one who organized it all. Miss Piercy goes there. Miss Fink. Oh, how children remember the castle. In the second grade room, there was an actual castle built into a classroom, and you could actually go up into the second floor of the castle in a classroom in Miss Fink's room, and Mr. McNeil helped build that for her. And many loving, giving teachers in that place. Mrs. Stone, who became Mrs. Irwin, my first day in my life to teach a class, February the 8th, 1969, room 303, and Mrs. Stone's room then, and that woman became my best friend in life.
Huh.
Still a mentor to me.
I think I remember her.
She's like a Mother Earth figure, one of the most accepting, loving, creative women you could ever meet. A true Mother Earth figure for her students.
Who were the art teachers? I can't remember.
Oh, let's see. There were different levels of art teachers, very, very creative art teachers. Many of the students at Houston ended up being prolific, famous artists running the Lucian Crump Gallery in Germantown. A famous art gallery is run by a young man named Finney, Finney, and he was a tremendous. Houston produced Houston and Henry, many famous rock groups also. You may have heard of the major group called Breakwater. Breakwater sold 500,000 albums, their first ones, and those students were all in my classes. And then a really famous group that came from Houston and Henry called Pieces of a Dream.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, my goodness. One of the greatest young jazz groups on earth. And they sold out major venues around the world, in Europe, in America. And they were young kids who Mr. Zisk, I'm Mr. V, he's Mr. Z. He saw these kids love their instruments a lot. He said, how'd you like to have an after-school jazz club? And they said, oh, sure. And he got them together and realized these kids have tremendous gifts. By the time they got into 8th grade, they were on a high level. And when they went after 8th grade, they were going to go to the new school, Martin Luther King, who had a terrible summer burglary. All the instruments at the school were stolen. So these young kids said, well, we'll have a fundraiser. We'll sell out the 1,000-seat auditorium and have a fundraiser to get new instruments. So these kids, the Pieces of a Dream, put on a stunning sold-out rock concert, jazz concert, and who was sitting in the audience but the world-famous Grover Washington Jr., one of the greats, and he adopted those kids. He got them a major level, a major recording label, and they became world-famous.
There's a lot of karma in your life.
Yes.
I see a lot of karma between different people. It's a lot of it's interesting that you had those schools fostering that kind of creativity and everything, and the teachers and everything. I remember that even back then, that the first thing to go were the arts programs.
Yes.
We changed art teachers a lot. The music teacher would come and go, but longer stints than art teachers. Art teachers were, you couldn't remember their name. They'd be gone, and there'd be no art this semester, and then art would be back or whatever. But you kind of were always there. How did you make Latin survive?
This was quite a thing. The Latin program, initially, I was one of the very first teachers hired. It's 1969, February. And it was such an innovative thing to teach Latin in 5th grade. People would say, oh, high schools only have it for the elite, the brightest student, it's so hard. Except that our method of teaching was so innovative. There was no grammar taught. You didn't have to memorize declensions, conjugations, all kinds of grammar rules. You lived it, you spoke it, you sang it, you dressed in it, you ate like it. And all the English derivatives that flowed from it. It was such an enriching thing. And this is a very powerful part of it. It became the largest Latin program on earth. 22,000 fifth and sixth graders having Latin for over 27 years all over the city. The Wall Street Journal front page, 6 columns across the front page were about my students and I, and a full half page inside that issue 2 weeks